Please be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our hearing on the proposed changes to the Colorado probate rules and forms. I've been asked to preside today as the liaison of our court to the Probate Rules Committee, so I'm happy to do that. Let me tell you just about our procedure, what we'll be doing today. We'll first hear from Judge Diana Terry as the chair of the Probate Rules Committee, and she'll give us an introduction as to the proposed rules, and then we will move to our public speakers. I will call them in order in which they're listed on the agenda, and we'll welcome them up to be heard. I have two requests on behalf of the court for all of our public speakers. One is I would ask all of you to try to observe the time limits that we have imposed. In fair notice to everyone, I will do my best to enforce the time limits. We'll let you finish a sentence, but please do respect the time so we can hear everyone. And the second thing I would ask by way of a request is that I'll tell you we welcome any comments you want to share, but it would be most helpful for the court if you would limit your comments to the proposed rules, because that's what we're here to talk about today. So with those procedures and requests in mind, I'd like to welcome Judge Diana Terry.
May it please the court. Good afternoon. I am Diana Terry, and I have the distinct pleasure of being the chair of the Colorado Supreme Court's Probate Rules Committee. I want to just give a little bit of background about this committee because it was a pretty new committee. As far as I know, it is the newest rules committee that has been created by the Colorado Supreme Court. In late 2015, members of the probate bar sent to the Supreme Court a packet of proposed amendments to the probate rules. They worked very hard on those proposed amendments, and we appreciate all of their work. Chief Justice Rice decided to create a probate rules committee to operate like the other Supreme Court rules committees. A Supreme Court justice was assigned to be our liaison to the Supreme Court. Initially, that was Justice Allison Ide, but when she left to join the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, it was and now is Justice Richard Gabriel, who is our liaison. The committee was set up to be headed by a Court of Appeals judge, just like the other rules committee, like many of the other rules committees, and Chief Justice Rice appointed me as the chair of the committee. The committee was made up of members of the judiciary, the bar, court administrative personnel, and employees of the State Court Administrator's Office who had relevant expertise in the area. It was comprised of two subcommittees, the Rules Drafting Subcommittee and the Forms Editing Subcommittee. Here's what we did. We held our first meeting on January 15th of 2016, and the committees and the subcommittees have been hard at work ever since then. Our task was to consider the proposed amendments to the probate rules and any other amendments to the rules and the probate forms that the committee felt might be needed. The subcommittees went over every word of every rule and every provision of every probate form, considering whether they needed to be revised. The revisions that have been proposed to the court reflect 2 solid years of work by the committee and the subcommittees. Here were our goals. Make the rules and forms consistent with the probate statutes and current practices before the probate courts. The rules that had been in effect, and in fact are in effect now, some of them are somewhat obsolete. We wanted to make the rules and forms easier to access and use. We wanted to increase fairness and ease of understanding of the rules and forms to self-represented litigants who make up about 58% of probate litigants in Colorado. We wanted to decrease inconsistencies in practice in the probate courts around the state. We wanted to keep people from getting hometowned if they took a case in an unfamiliar jurisdiction. One of the things that we did to make things more usable, user-friendly, was to change the forms so that now when a form is filled out, it no longer has to be taken to a notary public to be filled out. Now there can just be a verification made under penalty of perjury. And this was done largely for access to justice reasons. We also made changes to comply with recommendations by the audit, from the audit that was done by the state auditor. All of our committee meetings were open to the public, and our minutes have been made available for public review. The committee received and considered all of the public comments that were timely received. I want to mention in the last few days, I've received a couple of additional comments from members of the bar, and they have been notified that we will take up their suggestions after this process in front of the Supreme Court has been completed, after this court has ruled on the existing package of amendments. I thank the court for its careful consideration of the proposed revisions, and at this time, I'd ask if the court has any questions.
I guess I see none. Judge Terry, I want to thank you and your committee for all the hard work over these last several years. We much appreciate it.
Thank you, Justice Gabriel, and thank you for your help with the committee as well. With that, I respectfully request that the court adopt the amendments that have been proposed by the Probate Rules Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. So we'll move on to the public speakers portion of our proceedings today, and we'd like to invite Ms. Karen Calavity.
Hello, my name is Karen Calavity. I've got to admit I haven't read all the rules or anything. I have been affected by the probate court, and I have attended some of the legislative meetings that, for instance, the lawyer here was talking about. Probate court is its own entity. It doesn't seem to follow any other rules, and I think it suffers for that. Evidence that should be allowed is suppressed. Often we are dealing with dead people and their wishes in a probate court. And I was listening, I came in early, but too late to know these people's names of the case before. And the dead man's rule or whatever, where a person who is no longer alive can't speak for themselves, but people who know their wishes aren't allowed to express what they know the dead person's wishes were. That's crazy. And, you know, really a probate court is supposed to take into account the deceased person's wishes, known wishes, whether they had a will or not, pay off debts, and do what is in the best interest of the estate. Personally, I have been involved in a situation where my dad died without a will. He had a very valuable property, 15 acres. We got, because he died without a will, we got a probate attorney, and one of his jobs was to get accurate appraisals for that real estate. It was paid for out of the estate, my dad's estate, $4,000, to a prominent company called CBRE. They should know how to do appraisals. They come up with $600,000 as a value on a piece of property that had been valued my dad died in 2014. And the value that had been given to the property in 2009 was $2.3 million. And here these guys come in at $600,000 in 2014. And we thought, well, there was a recession. We wanted to buy the property back, so maybe that's okay that it's gone down in value. My sister and I wanted to buy back the property. Well, it became apparent that value was only going to be to somebody else besides somebody in the family. And my sister and I, when we started getting ready to refinance the property, to keep it in the family, which was a known wish of my dad, our attorney took my sister and me to court. And then he brought in so-called experts, RE/MAX and Coldwell Banker, who gave market analysis of $675,000, and the judge ordered the sale within 6 months of a property. Even in probate court is supposed to have a year to resolve and pay off debts. And I mean, this is how these probate courts are functioning. They function with, well, your dad didn't leave a will, so we can do whatever we want. It's like, that's not what probate court was supposed to be at all. And cronies, I've been to some of the legislative meetings where the people were talking, the language has been changed You know, in the last legislative meeting was, you know, these people are in charge of estates often in the millions, and they were bonded up until this year for $25,000. Now it went up to $100,000. That's how much it's cost us just to deal with a court case involving our probate attorney who, you know, sold off my dad's estate for pennies, you know, for a small percentage of what it was worth to benefit. In this day and age, real estate companies are making out. And these guys are they're conduits to the real estate companies and the developers. It's just crazy, and it's not fair. That's my.
All right, thank you, Ms. Claffey. Let me ask if anyone has any questions for you before you leave. Any questions? Seeing none, Ms. Claffey, thank you for your time today, and sorry for your loss. Next on the schedule, we have Mr. Peter Coulter.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you. First, I don't think through all the hard work, and we did the same kind of hard work for the retention of the judges, that what the new rules revised will not correct the problems that are in the court. It's with the judges that things need to be changed, and they need to be held accountable, okay, to the people that are going through probate, and they aren't. I mean, they rifle through wills and trust and that kind of thing by saying, oh, the family is arguing, and so we're going to bring in a public administrator, and the money is spent. The money is spent, and no one gets any money. Out in Arapahoe County, Lulu Fleming, who's head of Face Us, read me a figure this afternoon. 11 families in 5 years lost $17 million. Not one dime did they get out of the estates. 11 families, zero. I mean, some of the wards of those things were on food stamps. And so these public administrators are allowed to rifle through this money, rifle. And as an example, I brought a gentleman, one of the worst cases in the probate court that I've ever seen in Arapahoe County, Patrick Brannigan, right here, who worked for 26 years for the post office on his own, no problem. Had an accident out in the parking lot, broke his hip. They told him, don't report it or we'll put you in an old folks home. So he didn't report it. A year or so later, the head of the post office found out about it, retained an attorney, and got finally settled for $100,000. And he had a home that he lived in. It was completely paid for except for $80,000. That money was supposed to go pay for that home. And he was making his payments, no problem. Nothing was wrong with this guy. Then all of a sudden, he got sucked in out there in Arapahoe County in the probate by Tamara Palmer, and pretty soon the money's gone in less than a year. That $100,000 didn't get paid off. Then he's put on $40 a week to live on McDonald's gift cards. Okay? Then they took his dog that he had for 12 years. They took the dog. It was an intentional effort to get this guy out of there and get him to die so they could collect his money. And it's still going on today. I mean, they got rid of Tamara Palmer, but they won't let him have the dog. I mean, it's just an abuse. You can just tell they're sucking every dime out of this guy. And this home that was almost paid for, nobody knows what. They've done a reverse mortgage on it, and nobody knows where that money's at. Nothing. You can't get anything out of anybody. In the meantime, this guy, he has a car, but they won't let him drive it. He has a driver's license, and now the new probate conservator is giving him $160 a month, but it doesn't do anything. I mean, before the conservator was charging $140 a month to have a guy come over and pick the mail up out of his post office box. He doesn't even get his own mail. They have it sent to their office so they can collect the pension checks and everything before he gets a hold of it. It's just a complete abuse. That's not what the probate court's about. And this guy, there's nothing wrong with this guy. I mean, he's got a mental disability. He's got a learning disability. He's got an IQ of about 70, but he's okay. There's nothing wrong with him except for these people who have grabbed him and made they're leeches. They're leeches. And it's because the courts allow it. And the new rules aren't going to change it. I've been through all those rules. They're not going to change this. Something has to be done to make accountability with the judges. And I don't know, one of the steps I mentioned in my hard copy was cameras. Put cameras in. I mean, we suggested it when we were doing for judicial retention, but at least you put them in the probate courts. It costs $3 a day to put a camera. And through TED, that program, they say it makes a huge difference. It keeps people honest. I myself had a transcript, the most important transcript in our case of my mother's probate, deleted. Deleted. And then I'm completely gone in the last days or so before we were turned into the appellate court. So I don't know what other things can be done, but something has to be done with the judges, and accountability, and also not allowing the judges to go into these wills and trust and deeds and break them up because mostly they break them up, they say, because the person was delusional when they signed it. That's their favorite trick to do with these people. And then the public administrator comes in and empties it. And it's still happening today. So I wish you would take that into account, and when you're making these rules, even review his case and do something so it can't happen again to the next person.
Thank you, Mr. Coulter. We do appreciate your time. Does anyone have any questions? Seeing none, Mr. Coulter, we appreciate your being here today. Thank you, sir. Next, Ms. Jessica Bruce, if she's here.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
I apologize for my lateness. My name is Jessica Bruce, and today I'm here speaking.
If you pull the microphone down just so we can hear, I want to make sure we hear you.
Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jessica Bruce, and I'm speaking on behalf of my grandfather, Dennis R. Bruce. He's a 77-year-old Air Force vet. I'm also here speaking for Face Us, Families Against Court Embezzlement. I began this journey about May of 2017. It's been more like a war for me. I was notified that my grandfather's house was being foreclosed on. After months of investigating this, I came to the conclusion that my grandpa's home was being stolen and he was fallen victim to a predatory loan. A system called MERS, the Mortgage Electronic Registration System. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this subject, but a lot of people go through the same kind of issue with MERS. Unaware that the legal system is corrupt, I did hire an attorney. I put my trust in him, and he did not do his job. The lawyer did not try to fight my grandpa's case or save his home. Instead, he laid down in court and said nothing. We were allowed to present no evidence, no testimonies were given. It was very clear that this crook was in this not to save my grandpa's home, but for his own financial gain. At the end of this requesting, more than half of my grandpa's remaining monies and overpayment awarded. Persons deemed incompetent, and it was all downhill from there. So many families around the world and thousands in Colorado fall victims to these mob-like shakedowns. Once the home is gone, the money is gone, these people are left for dead. Most of them stuck in terrible facilities when they have family fighting for them. In most cases, rules of civil procedure and rules of evidentiary procedure are not followed. These people even have their civil rights and constitutional amendments violated. Defendants of foreclosure cases are oftentimes treated as less than none. Plaintiffs oftentimes don't follow rules when submitting documents. Unauthorized documents are often allowed as evidence. It's a fundamental fact that plaintiffs often fail to produce the original note or prove that the trust or certificate even exists. But still, the court is allowing this to happen. The next stop after this is probate court, probate fraud, unnecessary conservatorships and guardianships. My grandpa, his conservatorship started in January 25th of 2018. At that time, he had $47,000 left, and a financial plan was submitted for him to have 18 months in the facility that he's in. It's 4 months later, and we were notified that my grandpa's estate is gone, and we must move him immediately. This is the third time in 6 months that we've had to move my grandfather, and we have no idea where his money has gone. It's very important that these cases are looked at and that these people are held accountable for where this money goes. We had a sustainable plan to house my grandpa for the remainder of his life, to have in-home care people come in and take care of him, plus money's remaining to care for him for the remainder of his life. And now he has nothing. Like the other person said, his dog is gone, his home is gone, his vehicle is gone. He's stuck in a facility and unable to help himself. It's very fundamental that we all take this into accountability, hold everyone accountable that's involved, the public administrators, the judges, the GALs. They're supposed to be doing what's best for these people, and they're not. In the end, the older people are the ones suffering. They lose everything they worked for their whole lives, everything. Can you imagine that? That's all I have to say now. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Bruce? Seeing none.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Ms. Bruce. We appreciate your being here. Our next speaker is Mr. Cliff Batista.
My name is Cliff Batista, and I speak very plainly about this subject today. When I went to court, my father had 3 attorneys, his primary care physician, and adult protective services behind him. Opposing counsel had the public administrator, who was involved in the business with the attorney, who was chosen by that court. Anybody want to guess who won? There was nothing honorable about that judge. What he did was despicable and disgrace to the profession and to everyone that wears that title. And what's scary is that more people that are judges are not honorable. And the proposed change that's been suggested today will do nothing to change that. You've heard enough today about what's going on in these courts. And you all have an obligation to fix this. Because even though they're pulling the trigger, you're allowing it. And you're guilty by association. Can you all live with people's lives being destroyed? All that taken away from them. And worse, the suffering. These are things that happen in other countries that makes the United States so great. And what we're letting happen today is that all the things that make America great, our judicial system, is falling apart. And people are becoming less trustful of it. And I don't know where you want this to end at. Because either you're going to change it and fix your own problems that you need to, or there's going to become a backlash from the people. Now, where that goes, I don't know. But I could tell you, more and more people are recognizing that attorneys, they're earning their reputation. And judges are supposed to stand above that and keep that relationship separate and follow the law, not people to change that, is just going away. There are more people in your profession that are laying down and just giving it up. They're giving away to the money. They're unprincipled. They're a disgrace to the country, to their robe, to their profession, and all of you. And I don't know each of you individually. How many of you can say that you're honorable in what you do? And I don't mean that to anybody up here, any offense to anybody of you. But I'm saying, when people address you as honorable, is it? Are you? Because if you want this country to go away and become a third world country and become just as despicable as the people that we claim to try to change, we're well on our way. And it starts right here with you guys to change this. And like I say, if you won't do nothing about it, the public will get fed up enough to where changes will come, and it probably won't be as good as the ones that you make. And I believe you guys take your job seriously. I hope you do. But you need to take us seriously. We've had enough. People have had enough. It's not right that people die before their time, suffering, being separated from family, because somebody wants to keep it private, what they've done, and don't want it to be let out so that people know about it. This is gang stuff. This is MS-13 almost on the beginning of. People are being hurt and killed here. It's not just the money. They're getting hurt and killed. Hope that sinks in. Please do the right thing for all of us. We're really depending on you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Batista. Does anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. Mr. Batista, we appreciate your time today. Thank you. The last speaker that we have listed is, I think it's Ms. M.N. Runner. Is Ms. Runner here? Got here just in time. Welcome, please.
Colorado. About 56 years ago, the president of the University of Colorado told my dad to come out to be a professor to bring biology up to the 21st century. We left Washington, D.C., where I was coming of age. I've been in litigation for the family for 24 years. Boulder County District Court, this is unacceptable. I had the great honor of studying law with Justice Hart's father, Archibald Cox, when he was in Boulder for a year, sabbatical, constitutional law, First Amendment, visiting his daughter while she was practicing down here. And I took that opportunity to study other areas of law. And one of the professors told me if I wanted to matriculate into law school. But Mr. Cox said, come on back to Harvard Law School, Marilyn. So I went. And I did my assessment. And because of my scholastic academic environment growing up in, I took the opportunity to cross many, many fields so I could get a great broad understanding while I'm here on this planet. So I go to all the lectures I can that are sophisticated at CU. First Amendment, constitutional law, democracy, the Western Center for Civilization, Philosophy, and Thought. I go to the Larry Gold Symposium, which is science. I go to the Gamoff lecture, the annual lecture. I read constantly. And I follow what's going on in Washington, D.C. now. And I swear if I were of that age, I'd be back there working for Mr. Mueller and his team. My heritage is from 5 generations back, goes back to the Midwest, where my family walked over from Ohio in 1836. And so I go back there periodically, and I'm shopping in Best Buy, and the sales clerk, head of department, says, talk to me about Trump and how I should vote for Trump and get a gun. And I go, oh, for 45 minutes. And I'm out there saying, okay. But I call my friend Joe, and he says, oh, no, okay. Get a balance there. But I come out to Boulder, and I'm shopping at Best Buy with Hewlett-Packard representative, and he's saying, vote for Trump. And I'm going, oh, okay. So I do study what's going on in Washington, and I see corruption, collusion, and conspiracy in Washington. It's very frightening. My major was Russian and French, literature and language. So I really believe, with all my background, that I have a keen understanding of where this country is going. It is scary. Read James Clapper, National Intelligence. He has a book out, brand new, called Facts and Fears. He's scared, and so aren't all of his other colleagues. Read the latest book out called Tailspin, by Stephen Brill. He talks about what's been going on in this country for 50 years. We've got to do something. It's not right that I need to be in litigation for 24 years in a state probate in Boulder County, based on the conduct of who I hire, Boulder and Denver attorneys. We see repeated patterns from Denver to Boulder. You may know some have gone to the FBI. I've chosen not to go there. My solution is to please, can we have a task force set up by citizens, for citizens, with representatives from all the courts to try to resolve this, because it's not right. I won't be here, but your grandchildren, great-grandchildren maybe will be here. But knowing what I know about the Russians, that they are scouting out our beaches, scouting out our deserts where no one's looking, in order to find out where we've laid our fiber optics, for example, they can cut us off in a heartbeat, and they would. We need some immediate solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Runner, for the time. Anyone have any questions?
No, thank you.
Seeing none, we appreciate your being here, Ms. Runner. That actually concludes our list of speakers and will conclude our hearing. I again want to thank Judge Terry and your committee for all of your efforts, and I want to thank each and every one of the speakers. We heard you, and we appreciate your being here and the comments you've given us. So with that, that concludes our public hearing today, and the court will be in recess.